Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:33. Our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have a lot of visitors today. So if we could have everybody introduce themselves and a quick little reason why you're here tonight, that would be great. Let's see. I'll go in order of the way my my screen's laid out. So the first one up, I would say, would be, let's see, Lauren Howe.
Hi, I'm Lauren Howe. I'm a parent of twin sixth graders at Swanton School, and I'm here to just take part in agenda item 3.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Stephanie Gingras.
I'm also a 6th grade parent, and Lauren invited us to come and listen to addenda number 3, so that's what I'm here to do.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to butcher this name, and I apologize, but Katie Valens? Katie? I bet it's Katie.
Okay. She says
Do you
she
see
can't.
where she said, oh.
What's that?
She says she can't use her mic. She's a community member.
Okay, yeah, I see that now. Thank you. Next up would be Matt Roulette.
I'm here to take part in item number 3 as well.
Thank you. Stephen Martell.
Yeah, I'm a 6th grade parent. I'm just here to listen.
Thank you. And Jamie St. Marie.
Here for the 6th grade discussion as well.
We have someone on the phone too. I'm not sure who that is.
Hi, this is Bonnie and Phil Howe, and we are grandparents of 6th graders, so we're here to listen to the discussion of item number 3.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think I missed anybody. If I did, go ahead and raise your hand or shout out at me, but I didn't see anybody miss. So at this time, we can move on to which I believe first up is correspondence and visitor comments, which I think everyone that was a visitor was waiting for agenda item 3. But if they had any other comments, go ahead and raise your hand now. Not seeing any. One moment. I'm pulling up my agenda. Okay. So item number 3 is upgrade on grade 6. Update, excuse me, not upgrade.
So Dina and I have been discussing the fact that Swanton 6th grade is still hybrid. As you know, we've been alerting the board as we've gone through the fall and winter with this. We have been concerned about 6th grade being hybrid. However, there are some challenges, most of which is the use of space, the number of teachers we have that are good veteran teachers that are available, and the numbers of students that we have that would exceed the classroom sizes. There are many things that have been considered: moving classrooms, finding a teacher. As you know, we think out of the box on a regular basis. Every conversation that has happened with Dina and her teachers and with me has, you know, pros and cons to each decision. And right along the way, we have been making the decision to wait and continue with hybrid rather than disrupt. I'm going to admit somebody else to the meeting, excuse me, rather than disrupt the learning that's happening already. So we've been having conversations about how long this has been and how we can increase some of the learning for students. It is, nobody is saying that we think that this is ideal. This is something that's very difficult conditions, and all of these decisions are made with a lot of review and a lot of consideration about the impact on all of our students. So Dina, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about the letter that you sent out and the town hall style meeting that you just had.
Okay, I can kind of briefly give the presentation or just the talking points that we just discussed with the sixth grade teachers and the sixth grade parents. We have been anticipating trying to bring sixth grade back, and the board has been aware of that every step of the way. Our colleagues in Highgate and Franklin came back in November. We, based on our spacing and the recommendation of the Healthy Start guidelines, weren't able to bring the entire classroom of kids back as they were. We did lose a teacher to VTVLC. We do have an extra classroom. We looked into hiring another sixth grade teacher. We did not find someone, and we didn't even advertise, I should say that, because right now we didn't get any applicants for our first grade slot when we were looking for that. We were worried about bringing someone brand new in for sixth grade. So the teachers have been continuing to work in their hybrid. Things have been going very well with the kids and the teachers. The concern got to be that our students were not receiving the new amount of curriculum that the other sixth graders were receiving. And that was, our teachers can't work any harder if there's no more time for that. So we worked on another alternative in the hopes that eventually some of the requirements may be lifted. The governor and the Secretary of Education is saying they would like everyone back after April break, including high school. And I think in order for that to happen, some of those recommendations will have to be loosened, because right now with the classroom settings, we can't do that. So starting next week, we worked with Josh LaRush, our tech support guy, and he has all of the teachers live streaming. So the kids' remote days, they're actually going to be in the classroom virtually as the teachers are teaching, and they will be receiving new content. Right now, those remote learning days, whenever we've been hybrid, and no matter what grade it is, they were practicing their skills that day. And right now we're going to be able to deliver new content to those sixth graders. So we felt that in consideration of not being able to bring them all back yet, that we were doing a disservice to our students by not, it's not that the teachers weren't working hard and I had to convince them of that. They've been working very hard, but the bottom line is they're not able to deliver new content. And we knew that that was doing a disservice to those kids in connection with the other two schools at this point. We are doing assessments along the way. The teachers feel they're right about where they were this time last year, which is good, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for the rest of the year. We also talked about the fact that they may be doing a good job, but the idea that students aren't having the opportunities. We know, I had just said in the last meeting, as teachers, we can teach everything. It doesn't mean that the kids are going to actually learn it. So given more time doesn't mean anything, but given more time, it does mean that we're giving those students opportunities that we weren't able to do by sticking in this totally remote hybrid model. So that was our next move beginning next Monday.
Yes, and one of the other criteria for making a step toward bringing more students back as well is also making sure that we're not having any cases in our school. And and in our community. And we're continuing to have cases every week or so, which is another factor. But I have been working with Dina and she with the teachers really to talk about, okay, I know that hybrid is feeling pretty good and solid, and the students are in their routine and they're doing well, but what are the assessments saying? You know, so that's an important piece for us to be examining, and the teachers have been examining that information, which is why that we've, you know, wanted to increase their exposure to new learning.
Okay, so any questions and stuff, as Lauren has already showed, just push the, there's a button at the bottom that says raise hand, and I will call on you as I see it. So first up, Lauren. Can't hear you, Lauren.
No, Lauren, I think you're muted.
Well, we'll see. It's
No,
well, so technology is kind of making my point tonight. Can you hear me? Nope.
Yeah.
Sorry. So my point, the computer's kind of making my point for me. Technology is being really glitchy tonight, both in this meeting and in the last meeting. So it was not letting me unmute. Thank you for putting this on the agenda. And I think my first point is that the reason that I asked that this be brought to the school board is that I have tried reaching out to the district and also to the elementary school directly about some of my concerns in recent weeks. All the things Julie and Dina have just mentioned, just touched upon. And if you can't hear me at any point, please interject. So as a parent, I'm also a teacher in a different district. We had students back full-time in November. Space is an issue everywhere, as is COVID. And Julie, every letter that has come back or come to parents about positive cases within our school community has indicated that they're not being transmitted, or not that it's not being transmitted within our school, right? It's a community spread. So I don't know as though I see the point in you saying that by not having kids come back, that it's because of a concern about the number of COVID cases, when we don't think it's being spread in school. Second of all, in terms of space, as a teacher, and as a teacher who this school year,
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're starting to lose you, Lauren.
was asked to teach in a grade level I do not normally teach, who was asked to start the school year teaching virtually to a group of students, and then was pulled back into the classroom with a cohort of kids who had never been together and were plopped in my room. Oh, I'll
Yes.
slow down. Can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. You know, I've been through all these transitions professionally, and to watch my kids go through all of these changes or expectations, and then having their expectations not met, is one level of disappointment. My other level of disappointment is that I just simply don't think that any of the reasons I've heard are valid in my mind 13 weeks after announcing that 6th grade was going to be coming back full time. That letter came home November 4th. Franklin and Highgate have had their kids come back. And the fact of the matter is, all of these kids will be back together next year at MVU. And I am frightened for my children. And at the beginning of the year, I will tell you, I did not want them back in person. And I argued with my husband, and I disagreed with him until recently. As of Christmas break, when we were told for the second time that our kids would not be returning to in-person learning, I've been very frustrated. And that's when I started reading. They've been very polite and they responded very quickly. I have not gotten answers that feel thorough. in the way that I would hope for them to be. And that being, I think, more because I'm a teacher and I know some of the ins and outs. Being, for example, that Swanton School, I'm as far as I'm aware, is the only school that gave up 3 teachers to the Vermont Online Learning Academy, as far as the elementary schools in our district go. What I also think has happened, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, I don't know if that's true, but I assume that that's true, that we gave up 3 and Franklin and Highgate gave up 9. Yes, I'm
Lauren, you're
seeing a
breaking up a
yes.
little. I don't want to interrupt you, but yeah.
But all of the kids in our school district and from neighboring school districts are benefiting from our sacrifice. And the only kids that I see not. Okay, can you hear me now? I'm almost through. Okay, again, this is why in-person is better. So I think that this is a creative option that is starting next week. And I appreciate that time and thought has gone into this change, but I think it's about 13 weeks too late. I think this was a good option in November when parents and families were told that students would be returning in December on the 14th, and then that didn't happen. That would have been a good time for this to have been implemented. And I'm not really sure still what the plan was in December on the 14th for my kids to be back in school, because it sounds like there was still no staff and there was still no space. But in fact, there is space. There is a classroom of a teacher who is teaching virtually. And as far as in order to be a reading interventionist, a math coach, a math interventionist, an administrator, any of those things, you have to be a licensed K-6 teacher. And so you did not need to hire anyone. There must have been someone in-house. I did hear the point, and that's what they've done at my school district. There was a math coach that had to teach 3rd grade. Did she know the reading curriculum? No. Did she have support from the other 3rd grade classrooms? Yes. And I think that an option is better than this option, 13 weeks too late. I also think, you know, obviously none of this was expected. And I am living this as a professional, as a parent, as a community member, just like you all sharing the screen with me tonight. But I feel like there were opportunities for better planning along the way. And here we are in February, and my twins have had, as compared to Franklin and Highgate students, 12 days of in-person instruction since November, as compared to 40 for those kids. 40 to 12 since November. I am a teacher. I am perfectly capable of teaching my kids, except I can't. I'm at work teaching other people's kids. And that was not an option for us. And so again, this is not about the teachers. This is about planning. I do believe that their resources exist in our school, whether people were willing or unwilling, whether people felt confident or comfortable, not my concern. My concern is the twins. And I just don't think that these are acceptable answers at this point in the game. You know, they've got a few months left, and they've basically had an interrupted year, almost year of instruction. And the peers that they are headed off to MVU with next year will have had an exponentially growing amount of in-person days as compared to our kids in Swanton, who, let's face it, maybe we don't broadcast this at school board meetings. I don't think typically Swanton compared to Franklin, compared to Highgate, like, I don't think that test score wise, those are all equal to begin with. And as a teacher and as a mom, I don't really care about tests, but I do see what this is doing to my kids, and I am frightened for them, and I'm frustrated, and I just don't accept that the answers I'm hearing are good enough.
Thank you. I don't know if Dina or Julie would like to respond to that, or we can see if somebody else wants to comment before we have some more response.
I would want to hear from the entire group rather than have a dialogue.
Absolutely. Now my computer's starting to lock up.
Hey,
Oh, Matt,
are you guys able to hear me all right?
just a minute. Let's see. I've got Matt raised his hand, and then Jamie started talking. So I guess we'll go with Matt and then Jamie.
Hi, thanks. Matt Roulette. I'm just very concerned that we've been told this entire school year that there's no space for our kids. And then tonight we get told it's because we don't have a teacher. Hire another teacher. I mean, I get that it's difficult to find people right now, but you just got done saying that we didn't even advertise for it. How are we supposed to hire somebody if you don't even advertise for it? Seems ridiculous. Our kids are only in school 40% of the week. My son is missing out on not just educational development, but social development, how to deal with different situations. And it's just frustrating. On top of that, we as a family are making sacrifices, obviously, to get this done as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Jamie St. Marie.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So I have the same concerns as everybody else. Also teaching in MVU as well. And in a program that was designed to catch kids for like dropout preventions and all this other stuff. I'm seeing, and I'm going to be very emotional right now because my kid is lacking the education that he needs to go into the high school. And every day I'm hearing that he is depressed because he is not in school and he can't see his friends. It's not only taken a toll educationally, but the social emotional piece. And what is going on in our community, it's very scary as a parent. They need to be back in school.
Thank you, Jamie. I see Carrie LePan with her hand up.
Oops. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Obviously, as parents, we all have concerns. We did just have a meeting with the 6th grade teachers, and I would like to say kudos to them for everything, for giving time and attention to us as we need it along the way. This is super emotional and difficult. It's interesting that most of us that are on here are educators as well. So we walk these, shoes every day in a professional way, and then are dealing with it with our children as well. I just shared this with the teachers, but Grady will now be home by himself for 3 days a week because my dad's internet isn't strong enough and there's no other adult that can come spend the days with him. So I requested that he be eligible for callbacks and not based on academics, based on safety and social, and having to go to work and try to do my job professionally, and worrying about him being home at 12 years old by himself and feeding himself and learning at the same time. It's not easy on any of us. These decisions aren't made lightly. I completely get all of that. But I do think that those of us that are highly invested in this could come up with some suggestions or are willing to do what we can to get our kids back in school as the other 6th grade students are across the district. So I'm hoping that that's heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands raised. I do see Lauren with her hand raised, but I don't know if she just didn't take it down before or, okay. Yeah, I would say go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I am very grateful for you all to come to the meeting that Dina had, for your understanding of how hard our teachers are working. And I know you all understand how difficult this is. You know, we are examining all of these possibilities all the time. And decisions are made. There's pros and cons to every single decision. Do we take an interventionist away from struggling readers so that they can run a classroom? Do we hire a teacher that has a provisional license? All of those pieces have been part of the discussions that the teachers and the administrations have been having. And we definitely hear your input that you think that those decisions should be weighed one way. And we also have other folks within the school that have opinions as well. So I really appreciate the fact that you are strongly voicing your opinion. And I know that the teachers and Dina and I will continue to have these conversations and plan to bring students back as soon as we can. We do not want to break up classrooms with solid classroom teachers where we don't need to. Those are difficult decisions to make, but we're continuing to have those conversations because nobody likes it. Nobody is happy that this is where we're at. And I continue to have conversations with Dina regularly about different options. And she's been very willing to have these conversations with teachers and examine space and examine the curriculum over and over. So we're not finished, and your voice is very important to our decision making, and we appreciate it. Dina, I didn't know if you had more you wanted to, or if the teachers wanted to comment.
No, I think the only thing I'm going to apologize right now because I had been checking in with the teachers and I didn't realize that there was this much concern. I did hear from Lauren after she had first talked with Julie. But I will tell you, I did try to stay in tight communication with the teachers to see what kind of feedback they had been getting or what concerns families had. So I was trying to stay on top of that, but obviously I had no idea that there was so much concern about this for your students. So I will apologize to that.
Hello? Hi, excuse me. This is Bonnie Howe. I'm not doing this virtually, so you can't see my hand up, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'm not sure of how parents and Dina and the superintendent communicate. I know that I look at the website, the school's website, and certainly looking at that website where it says that it will be updated on a regular basis.
We can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was saying that I don't know how you communicate with parents, but you know, as a community member, a taxpayer, and the grandparent of kids in 6th grade, I looked at the school's website, and there is a link on there that the website states that it will keep the public updated on what's going on with school openings. And the last time it was updated was on November 5th. So I would, I guess, ask that you be a bit more transparent with the public and certainly with families and parents, and you might hear more concerns more frequently. The other concern that I really have is I am amazed to hear you say that you haven't advertised for a teacher. I am amazed at and appalled at that. And if there's a concern with space, I'm wondering if you've looked at other places like parish halls in the community or the municipal center or any place else that you could rent.
Thank you. Do you have more, or are you?
No,
Okay.
I just would hope that you would be a bit more transparent with what's going on, update your website on a regular basis. And I know that everybody's working hard, but there is a real concern. Of course, I'm concerned for my grandchildren. I'm concerned that they're going to be disadvantaged academically as well as psychosocially, as well as all the other kids in 6th grade. So I hope that when I go to the website from now on, I see a little bit more updated information than from November. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, raise your hand first, and then Lauren. Can't hear you, Megan.
You'd think after so long I'd have figured this out. So I was wondering, Julie or Dina, if you could speak a bit more to the decision to not advertise. I could certainly not be remembering correctly, but I don't recall instantly a discussion taking place at the board level about that. So I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that decision process.
Certainly, Dina and I did discuss doing a separate advertisement for grade 6. We did advertise for an elementary teacher, and we had no strong results. And I think that was the decision why we didn't advertise again.
Okay, Lauren.
Hold on. Is it working?
Yes.
Yay. I had raised my hand at the same time that my mother-in-law spoke, and she kind of made my point for me. But I did want to reiterate that I kind of wanted to come back to something that Dina said and just re-encourage communication from both the superintendent and from Swanton School with parents. I don't think it's the teacher's role to report back about what they're hearing. If you wanted to know what parents were thinking, you simply could have asked. And at least this parent, I disagreed with my husband right up until we were expecting to return December 14th, and the whole district had to close, or the whole school had to close. And then we were expecting to come back January 7th, and we're told over Christmas break, no, you are not. And at that point, I agreed with him and felt like, okay, so, but all of that time from November to January, or almost January, I was promised that my kids would be returning to in-person learning. So at no point was I dissatisfied necessarily in the way that I feel now. I'm not really certain what the plan was December 14th or January 7th for kids to return if we didn't have the space or the people then. So again, communication, and this is no way a reflection on Miss Belrose, Miss DePady, Miss Mitchell. I have twins, so I am familiar with 2 out of the 3 teachers, and they're phenomenal. They're doing the best that they can. This is not about them. And I don't think it's their role to report back to the administration about what parents may or may not be saying, because quite frankly, I wouldn't be emailing them with my concerns about what seems to be an administrative decision or direction. I would go to the source. And I did.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Megan.
So I think, I mean, for me, I would like to know at this point, given where we are, what can we do as a board that would help it in any way? You know, I understand the frustrations. You know, I'm a mom to 2 younger children, but the hybrid thing, I get it. And I get emotional thinking about everything that you all have been going through. Of course, as a board member, I also understand the other side of it with the guidelines and rooms and class sizes. And I am not one who likes to feel like I cannot do something to move the needle forward. So if there is anything that you are thinking would be helpful, I know I would appreciate hearing that, what we could do.
Carrie.
Thank you. I know that Dina mentioned in the first meeting about coming up with some guidelines for callbacks for particular kids. And again, I know my student doesn't struggle academically, and I'm not looking at it from that standpoint only. He's not a child that needs special education services. So depending on what those guidelines are we able to access some of these students who need it for other reasons, whether it's social, emotional, whether it's safety because they're home alone, whether we have an adult with them that's just facilitating their learning in any way. I know it's not ideal. Like I said, I work in a system where I'm covering lunches for preschool teachers this year as a speech language pathologist. That has never happened before. We all are coming together in a different way to get the needs met of these students. And I just don't feel like right now we've had these conversations to be able to do that to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, I definitely, we've been talking a lot about creative solutions to, if we're not going to find a teacher that's as high quality as Kirsten and the other teachers, that we don't want to necessarily take them away from that teacher to somebody who's brand new, for example. However, we want to think creatively about other ways that we can have students have their learning facilitated, have callbacks. I know that we've been partnering with Swanton Rec Department, and they've been having students in the rec department on remote days. That's worked for some families. It hasn't worked for everyone, depending on what their work life and childcare situations are. So I think that to answer Megan's question, we will look at this and report back to the board, given this input.
Thanks. Just one more thing, Julie. And again, this is just from my standpoint. Right now, I think any sort of support and supervision is going to be better than what some of these kids are having. And again, not ideal, and not Kirsten by any means. She's phenomenal, and Grady's flourishing with her.
Phenomenal.
Yes, somebody to facilitate that learning while she's teaching it. I think at this point is what we're looking for.
Terry.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question. Thank you all, as Megan said it really well, in terms of looking at this from parents and also looking at it from the board and seeing all the perspectives and the incredible planning and precision military planning practically that has gone into the, all this logistics with COVID. But I have a question, and that is the transparency. I think it's really important. I think it's something that we've really committed to. And I'm wondering, I understand about the website and getting that updated, but I'm curious as to, we're always trying to find out ways to reach out so we can get people's attention so they'll come to the meetings and they'll tell us things. What was it that we did or someone did that prompted everyone showing up tonight? Because we have meetings every 2 weeks and we've been having them, since for a long time. And then all of a sudden everybody came, which is great. We want the input. So what did we do right that got everybody to come tonight?
Carrie.
I promise I won't say much more. I definitely think this is an emotional meeting for us because there's a change in the schedule. My son went from spending 2 days a week with his grandfather and learning some great fundamental skills, and we doing, during academics at night with me when he got home, to now being forced into a situation where he needs to be by himself 3 days a week. So I think that was my motivator, the emotional motivator as a parent to be here.
And I think you'll see, that Dina sent a letter to families changing the schedule and inviting families to a meeting. And I know that I appreciate Lauren's advocacy in getting other parents to communicate and come as well, because she's been the person emailing us And so I think it is always important to understand how many folks are impacted. And I do appreciate the feedback that we could have done a survey. We could have done some other means of finding out how things were going. And I totally accept that piece of criticism because it's true.
Jen.
Julie, my question is, if we can find somebody that would be able to teach the kids and we're still at a space issue, I do like the suggestion. I think it was one of the grandmothers, the parish hall. Do we have like a liability reason why we wouldn't be able to do that? Or are we able to do it and just add insurance? I'm not sure. Liability issues of, excuse me, getting another space. I do, if I remember correctly, the is it Canada Street? There is the Catholic Church, and they used to have like a classrooms in the back for when they did the catechism. So I'm just a little curious about how that would work out.
Yeah. In this instance, when we talk about space, there is an empty classroom. There's just not a teacher for the empty classroom. If we were to bring all the children back to be in their classroom with their classroom teacher, there wouldn't be enough space for all of them to be in their classroom. So we would need to break up the children into different classes. So that's been part of the conversation.
So would they be able to?
Not that we need to rent another space, but that the current configuration would involve breaking up all of our classrooms and removing students from their classroom teacher in some form. But I think we can go back to the drawing board again and look at ways where we might be able to have students stay with their classroom teacher, but spend some time in another space so that they are not, so we don't have 22 children in a classroom that can only support 19 space-wise.
Would it be another option to do like what we're doing at MVU? So many kids come 2 days a week, you know, like split it. Would that be?
That's what's happening now. They're hybrid now.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, and then Lauren.
Matt, I'm just wondering why we haven't looked at a different schedule. You could get, in 10 days time, you can have one kid get 5 days in-person class. If you just went Monday, Wednesday, Friday 1 week, and then Tuesday, Thursday the next week, you get an extra day in there. I don't understand why we haven't looked at that.
Lauren.
Good point, Matt. I put it in the chat in the meantime. Sorry. I just suggested, you know, Parish Halls, Teen Center, the Swanton School Library. As far as I know, up until recently, the gym and the library in the central school were not being utilized. I think the gym is now cleared out and the kids are using that space for Unified Arts. Great. But as far as I know, the kids up until recently were still not accessing the library directly. And quite frankly, that's a bigger space that would accommodate more children. It would not be ideal, but it would still be within the building and would still allow for some more distance between desks and wouldn't require renting of space.
Thank you. Megan.
I just want to clarify because I feel like I've missed something. The issue is not space. The issue is a lack of a teacher. So if we had a teacher, we would have the space. Is that correct? Or even if we had a teacher, we would still need additional space?
It's twofold, Megan. So Swanton School is the only elementary school in our district that gave up 3 teachers for the year to online learning, right? We had the teacher, we gave them away for the year, not anticipating that students could come back full-time or would have the option to come back full-time. But here we are, and they can. we have the empty classroom of the teacher who's teaching virtually. But what I'm hearing Julie say is they at no point wanted to split up those students that had been dispersed into the other 3 classrooms and put them back with a new teacher. On top of that, they didn't want to hire somebody who maybe wasn't qualified. But to my point, there's people within the district that are already licensed K-6. Still not ideal, but in November, that would have been a good, valid option to pull anyone that's licensed into that empty classroom and pull those kids back from where they were. Now it's 5 months into the school year, and those kids have gotten to know Miss Belrose and Miss Mitchell and Miss DePatie, and they're lovely. And Julie is saying that, you know, nobody wants them to have to pull away from those teachers. So now the issue, because we haven't addressed it earlier in the year, is not space, not teacher, but it's space. It's the size of the space. We need a bigger place for all 3 classrooms to be in order to welcome all kids back from hybrid into in-person learning because of the scenario we are now placed in.
Okay, there's a lot of hands up. I believe Jen's went up first. Or is that still up from before? Okay, and then next was Jamie St. Marie.
So just a question, Julie, if we were to go to a bigger space, would we be able to bring back more kids in that one space location?
That's a conversation that we have had and we will have again. There's pros and cons to how that space is used and the impact on other students. I don't want to speak for Dina and I don't want to speak for the teachers. They're all an important part of making those decisions. But those are things we've considered all along the way and we will consider again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chris?
Just a minute, Don. Devin's next, and then I'll call on you, Don.
Thanks, Chris. Just again, thanks to all the community members that came to speak today. I think, you know, it was made clear to us and to the administrators how passionate you are about this. It was nice to hear some of the real examples of the impacts it's having on the kids. And I think all of that goes a long way in the decision-making process. You know, and now I think it's time for Dina and Julie and the administrative team to take what we've heard tonight and understanding the full kind of weight of what you've brought to us, and then go back to the drawing board. So I know they've heard everything, we've heard everything, and so at this point, you know, I think we can all just look forward to some future updates as they work through all this and figure out the best path forward.
Well said, Devin. Don.
Okay, I just want to build on that because I was thinking along the same lines. I want to thank everybody for coming in, but and maybe we want to wait until late on the board meeting, but I would suggest that we ask the administration to report back and have a special board meeting, maybe next Tuesday night, but within the next week. Time is of the essence, and I don't think we can drag this on till the 16th to know what we're going to do. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe we need to hire 2 teachers and find 2 spaces or whatever. But I just would like to say that I, as a board member, think this is important enough that we ask the administration within the next week to come up with a response, maybe a plan, but a response, and have a special board meeting. So at that time, we can get an idea of what needs to happen.
Thank you, Don. Also building a little bit on what Devin said, we really appreciate all the feedback. The more people come and the more feedback we get, the better. This is great to have such a big turnout. We don't normally do. So thank you very much. And I agree with Don. It would be nice to let the administration work through this with with all this new input, and then we can report back. Any other comments from any other board members or anybody that came, or questions? Not seeing any. Once again, Terry.
I'm sorry, can I just say thank you? I would reiterate what everybody else said. And I also would like to thank the teachers and the administration and Dina, because I know that, I know we say everybody's working hard, but I do know that Dina takes a lot of this stuff to heart. She loves the kids. And so I'm really glad that everybody showed up and we're going to have this conversation, you know, that the admin and Dina will work. Maybe, maybe since you all have brought up all these, it might behoove us to think about the whole, I'm sure Julie does. She always thinks MVSD. She doesn't just think Swanton, nor does Julie. But so thank you for all of this information. It's helpful. And I'll look forward to hearing if anything new can come from this. So thank you. And good luck for your kids. I hope we work out something that works.
Thank you, Terry. Not seeing any other hands raised. So once again, thank you everyone for coming. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you're done, that's fine too. So at this time, we can move on to the next item on the agenda. Oops. Oh, okay. So next up is agenda review, which I don't have any amendments, nor does Julie. So, and I don't see any other hands raised. So after that, we have approval of our meeting minutes from January 19th. To entertain a motion to approve our January 19th minutes. Terry's the first, Don's the second. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving our January 19th minutes, raise your hand. Miss Megan, I didn't see your vote. I'm sorry.
I'm abstaining. I wasn't present.
Okay. So, well, that makes it easy then. The vote was 7-0-1 with Megan abstaining. Next up is our administrative reports, and first up is MVU administration updates.
Thank you. I won't go through the whole report, but there's a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight for you guys. Previously, we had told you guys the timeline for signing up for registration for high school classes. We have altered that a little bit, actually quite a bit. The reason for that was because we were originally thinking of the A-Day, B-Day schedule, and the way that we have our 4x4 model this year, teachers really couldn't give recommendations for students that hadn't had their second semester classes yet. So we kind of pushed that timeline out a little bit and just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. We did put that information into the latest newsletter as well, but we are going to begin registration for students via PowerSchool the week of March 15th. The other piece of that I did want to mention from the administrative report was middle school registration. Historically, usually the first Tuesday in March, we have sixth grade registration night. Obviously, we're going to have to do something a little bit different this year with that. And what we're going to do is I'm going to mail out a letter to all the current sixth grade parents. And from there, is going to invite them to an evening. That evening will kind of be like a town hall where I will give a presentation for them about what they can expect at MVU. And I've already had my seventh grade teachers create some videos, like social studies department created one, English science department created one, and we've kind of mashed them all together. Not really highlighting teams per se, but just what kids and parents can expect when they come to seventh grade. So that night will actually be on Tuesday, March 9th. So I'll be getting that information out to parents probably by the end of next week, and any such paperwork that we would need that they would normally have for registering for electives and things along that line. So just kind of given where we're at these days, it might be one of the best things that we can do in lieu of in-person stuff. So that was the major stuff we just wanted to highlight in the administrator's report. Of course, there's a newsletter link on there and some upcoming dates. The second part tonight that we wanted to cover with you guys was just a little bit of a data snapshot for you guys, just to kind of give you a little bit of information around attendance and kind of what we've been seeing so far this year. So when you take a look at this, there's two things that we take a look at, ADM and ADA. And the ADM is your average daily membership. It's essentially the average number of kids enrolled within that grade. And when you take a look at this, you're going to see that number in parentheses, just right after the grade. And then ADA is the average daily attendance, which is the average number of students who are present on any given day. All right. And so the important part of this is that we have that for. In the high school, we take that during the period 3. So I got to be honest, when I first took a look at this, I was expecting it to be far worse than what I thought it would be. If you take a look at 7th grade, we have a ADM, average daily membership of 140 students. And when we compiled the data on an 85-day average, so it was just after the first semester, the average daily attendance overall percent is about 91.9 or almost 92%. So about 92% of our students are checking in on an average daily, on an average day. Now, what this kind of, the part that's difficult with this is some kids are checking in remotely and just doing like one class or so, which does take that into consideration. So it's not just those kids that are out all those times. For 8th grade, you can see that the ADM is 129 students. And again, we have about an 89.4% of those students checking in on a daily basis. Taking a look at 9th grade, again, we have about 93.4%. Again, that's one of our smaller grades right now, the 9th grade is, but 93.4% of them are checking in, which is quite high. And for grade 10, you'll see that about 91%. For grade 11, about 90%, and overall, grade 12 is about 93.6, which is actually, I actually did the numbers a couple of times on that one because I was shocked that the seniors were that high. So, but overall, we found that to be encouraging. So one of the things that we've been really taking a look at and trying to tackle this year is the excessive absenteeism or truancy. And this is not just an MVU issue, this is a state issue, this is a nationwide issue. If you follow this at all, we've had a large number of kids overall that have just kind of, all over the country, have just kind of dropped off the radar on us. So in the 5 to 10 range, the 5 to 10 day range, we have about 36 kids, grades 7 through 12, that are kind of in that group. In the 10 to 15 range, we have about 43 students. And as you can see, down at the bottom part of that, the medical or the quarantine, we've had so far at the time that we did this, 14 students have been needing to quarantine and be out of school. So, but it's been tough, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit more and just kind of show you what we've tried to do to try and curb some of this issue. But you can see some of the high numbers, and that's what's been alarming. So one of the things that we did is we compared apples to apples. And so we compared where we were for last year at this time to this year. And for overall for last year, we had about a 95% average daily attendance rate. And this year we're about 91.4. So we are down. We knew we were going to be down. And it's been tough to try and get some kids, some families to get their kids into school and even to check in on remote days. So we're down. It's not as significant as I thought it might have been, so which was promising. How we've tackled the problem, there's been a lot of ways that we have tried to take a look at this. So typically when a student is out for 10 days and then at 20 days, we do send letters on to parents letting them know that, hey, you've reached that mark. Usually when we've hit the 20 mark, we do file letters with DCF, Department of Children and Families, to report them for being truant. Usually every 5 after that, we will continue to file reports with DCF. We've asked our local law enforcement to do wellness checks, and they have done some wellness checks on some families, just making sure that they can put eyes on a kid and make sure that they're okay. Ones that we just aren't hearing from. We've kind of revamped a little bit of what student management does this year in some regards. And we've actually, as you can see from down below, we've reallocated a student management position to help kind of track attendance this year. And that's Michelle Bolio's position. We've also used some people in the middle school as well, tracking kids, calling, kind of find out when, like on Wednesdays on remote days, just calling in on parents, trying to find out why their kid's not logging on. We've had meetings with parents, we've had phone calls by teachers, counselors trying to connect remotely with kids. We've had, I called a kid with a guidance counselor about 2 weeks ago And the student just kind of broke down on the phone with both of us and just said that he's been really depressed and been really hard to kind of get motivated to do any school. And so it's been that kind of stuff, just connecting them back with somebody that they know and is familiar with them, has been trying. And that's why the SEL stuff has been so important. And just so you're aware, kind of next steps, we'll continue to do all those steps that we just kind of mentioned. But even tomorrow, there's a meeting. So there's a former panel called the Truancy Intervention Panel, which was in Franklin and Grand Isle counties. It was largely federally funded. The funding on that was stopped a little over a year ago, at least. But just so you're aware, that there's been enough conversation within NCSS and local schools and administrators. So we are looking to have, there's a meeting tomorrow run by NCSS, by Bo Twiggs over at NCSS. I know Julie's invited to it. Julie's going to be going to it. I'm going to it. Steve Messier is going to it. Just to kind of find out what other schools are doing and how we can kind of continue to tackle this issue and problem. And of course, we're continuing to provide mental health first aid. We had that as an option for all of our teachers and staff back on Martin Luther King Day. And we're going to postpone a little bit on the You Matter training for all staff. That was going to be tomorrow. We're going to hold off on that a little bit, but we're going to cover a lot of that. And we have Megan Malbuff, one of our counselors from NCSS. She's going to provide that training for everybody probably in the 1st of March. So that's just to kind of give you guys a little bit about where we are with attendance.
Thank you, Dan. First, I have a question from Terry. She says, I'm wondering about these attendance stats. Is there a difference between rates between online days versus classroom days?
No, it's not. It doesn't take it into consideration in that. I didn't break it down that much, but we are seeing, for the most part, except for when there's an outbreak close to within our community, when that happens, naturally a lot of parents will call their kids out, but the kids will then log in and do their remote work and check in with teachers. So we don't necessarily counting that as a day absent because they are checking in with their teachers and they are doing their work, completing that. So that's been positive. But we do know that any single time we see something in the community, naturally there's a lot that pull their kids out just out of concern for that.
Thank you. And then Peter has his hand raised.
Dan, the numbers, the attendance numbers seem, with all that's going on, the attendance numbers seem pretty good. But I'm wondering if, because they've just got to basically log on to get attendance, do we have any feeling or numbers for how many kids are actually participating, handing in work? And do we have any feelings on how many kids are struggling, compared to in person? Are we seeing, lower grades or kids struggling more than we've seen in the past, and how we're getting them help?
It's actually a really good segue into Jen's data, but I'll first. So, we do have kids. So you're on your remote days, you can log on and you can do some of the work, but you got to hand it in. You've got to submit it to teachers, and that's where it'll actually count them as present or in attendance. So they've got to be able to submit that work. So it's not just logging on, reading whatever they may have. They will have to submit something to the teachers in order to be considered in attendance for that. Overall, we do know that there's kids who are struggling. We have kids that just, for a variety of reasons, there's not a parent there to kind of help them out. Most of our kids are older. So, the parents are okay with leaving them home. And so therefore, they're not quite as motivated to get up, get going, log in. They do it later in the day. So what we find is, for the most part, a lot of kids are sleeping in until 10, 11 o'clock, maybe even noon, getting up, logging in for a couple of hours, doing a little bit of work then, or even not even submitting work until later in the evening. So the kids will be counted as absent until they've submitted some of that work. And the teachers have until the next morning to correct their attendance.
I have a question to that of a parent of a student that sometimes turns in work a lot later that afternoon. once we get the student caught back up and as its work's turned in and whatnot, does the attendance get changed once it's been, say, a week, or is at that point it just stays in absence?
No, teachers can go back in and change it. And even we have some of the people like Beth Grenier, my admin assistant, can go back in and change it, or guidance counselors can if they need to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Don.
You're muted, Don.
Oh, anyway, thank you, Dan. I thought the results might not be that good, but that's great under the circumstances. I hope the other administrators will do the same for the other 3 schools, because I think it's important that boards know this. But my question is, do we have a number of students who are at risk of losing the year as far as credit-wise? I mean, are we going to see next year when we come back that we have 20, 30 students who did not make the grade that they should have, and therefore will be repeating a grade?
So we're trying to put quite a few things into place. And again, to help kind of catch those kids down is probably the best way to put it. Every once in a while, we may have the occasional kid that'll come on in on an off day or a remote day and come into the office and sit down and do work. We'll work with parents, and so the parents will arrange transportation for the kid to come on in, sit down, and get work done that way. That's been a great motivator. The reopening of sports has been a great motivator for some kids. Julie just kind of gave us the go ahead. Jen and I are trying to hire some faculty to run kind of like a boot camp, almost like a tutoring session to get kids caught up during April and February breaks. So we're actually going to run between 8 and 12 in the morning during February breaks. We're going to start with the seniors who may not have done well in one of their first semester classes to see if we can get them in and get caught up during that time to get them to passing. We have, we have tutors, we have online tutors, we have math coaches that are getting on with kids. If we know a kid that goes into intervention, and the teachers can provide the support that way. If you ever, we have interventionists working in commons, we have them working in conference rooms, and it's not uncommon to walk by and see them working on a whiteboard, explaining math problems and helping kids out. So we've put a lot of things into place to try and catch these kids. And sometimes we need, some kids and families might need a little bit of a motivator. I've encouraged when report cards come on out, in some cases to leave it as an incomplete if they haven't quite done it yet, in the hope that that's going to spur some parents to realize. But I've asked my faculty to make sure that they're reaching out to families, capturing kids as much as possible. I've had a lot of conversations with kids, pulled them into offices and taking a walk around the pods, just trying to get them caught back, encourage them that we are looking at grades, we are looking at their attendance, and just trying to prop them up, dust them off, and keep them going is probably the best way to put it. That's
great, Dan. Thanks a lot to you and Jen and everybody else that's working on that. That's good.
Welcome. Jen.
All right, thank you, Dan. So the second half of the presentation is going to be around our STAR assessment data. We use the STAR assessment as a universal screener in grades 7 through 9. And we tested a little later this year than we typically do. Usually we test in the second week of the school year, but we pressed it until the end of September, early October, because we knew that establishing routines and relationships and building student stamina was really important for us to get accurate data at the beginning of the year. We just wrapped up our mid-year assessment this week, so the data was changing in real time, so I was updating it even today. And primarily we use this data to identify students for the interventions that we offer, but it's also good to look at holistically so we can see how we're performing as a school. And we test in math and literacy. The literacy test is specifically a reading test. And the scores in the literacy test are tied to Lexile levels. So that's something that our interventionists can use to help select reading materials for students and support our classroom teachers. And something interesting about the math test is that the reports give 11 specific skill areas, more than that in the high school level actually, where we can target interventions for students. So this is our 7th grade math data, both the fall data and the winter data. And you can see we saw a nice little increase in students who were at or above benchmark from the fall testing to the winter testing. Last year at this time, our 7th graders were performing at about 60% at or above. So we are a little behind that benchmark, but not by a lot. I'm encouraged by the fact that it appears that our students are maintaining the pace that we had before. And we have quite a few students in need of intervention, but we're working hard to support as many students as we can during this time. In grade 8, again, we see a nice little rise from the fall to the winter data, which is great. This particular cohort last year, they performed as 7th graders at about 60% at or above. So again, we're at a similar place, though there's a huge increase. Last year's 8th graders I misspoke. Last year's 8th graders were at 55%. So again, we're not far off from the benchmarks where we were last year, which is encouraging. I think that's data that maybe is a bit of a surprise for us. Our grade 9 data this year is incomplete, I would say, because we were only able to assess about half of our grade 9 students. Because of the 4x4 schedule, not all students had math in the first semester, so we don't have a complete set of grade 9 data. Also, our geometry students are going to take geometry, our grade 9 geometry students are going to take the assessment in the second semester, so we don't have their data yet, which would impact the overall levels of students who are proficient. This particular group, when they were in grade 8, tested at 55% proficient. So we have some digging to do here, but it's hard to tell exactly what's going on because the data is incomplete. So in terms of what we're doing to help support students specifically now during COVID, is we have our interventionists who are pushing in to provide support in algebra and geometry in grades 9 and 10. We have math interventionists providing one-on-one intervention for grade 9 students on remote days virtually. Our math coach has been repurposed this year. She's providing one-on-one intervention sessions for our middle school students because our middle school interventionist is working with VTVLC. We also have a remote day tutor who's meeting one-on-one with students for about 30-minute sessions a couple times a week to help support kids. So we're able to provide intervention for just about all of the students who were identified in the screener. And we have our attendance for these interventions is about 65%. So we're working to make sure that they attend for those interventions that we can offer, but the remote day interventions are challenging because we are oftentimes relying on students to get themselves to the intervention virtually. Our reading data for grade 7, again, you can see that there's a nice little increase from the fall to the winter data. At last year's, our 7th graders were at 45% proficient at the same point in the year. So very comparable to where we were last year, a little above, which is encouraging. In grade 8, we are up significantly from last year. Last year in grade 8, students were testing at 29% at or above, so that's encouraging to see that data. As a cohort, they're where they were pretty much at last year at 45% at or above. Again, the reading data for grade 9 is incomplete because only half of our grade 9 students were in English class during the first semester. We tried to assess all students, but we asked our 9th graders who weren't in English to take the assessment during a study hall or during their T-bird time. And asking a 9th grader to take a reading assessment when they're not with their English teacher might not produce the most accurate data. So we know that this data is not as complete as we'd like it to be, and we'll be looking forward to a better data set next year. Again, some of the things that we're doing are very similar to what we're doing in the math program. We have push and support from an interventionist in grade 9, and that interventionist is also working one-on-one with students on remote days. Our literacy coach has been repurposed. She is providing one-on-one intervention for middle school students on remote days virtually. We have that remote tutor as well, and we're providing some additional PD. What we're seeing is that we are able to offer reading intervention to about 80% of the students who are in need of urgent intervention or intervention, and that about 80% of those students are showing up on a regular basis for that intervention. As we're looking ahead, this data, really we're going to be thinking about the interventions and opportunities that we've offered this year that we've had to brainstorm and how that might impact what we offer in future years when we return to something that's a little bit more normal. A lot of the things that we're doing right now are working really well and will inform what we do going forward. Another piece is that there is the middle school reading interventionist position, which is in the budget for next year, and that's grant funded, and we're looking forward to that position because we would like to move even more students forward in their reading skills. Questions? I can't see the chat, so someone will have to read them out loud.
Jen, I have a question, if that's okay. And that is, Kate, you often mention the cohort, like you looked at what they did the year before. Did you do that in each of those? Is that what that was about? Because I couldn't quite get it. If sometimes you were talking about the cohort did previously or the 8th grade did previously.
Yeah, so in some cases I was able to track the cohort data, in some cases I wasn't.
Okay.
So I didn't present it kind of across the board because it wasn't available at all points. For example, I didn't have the 7th grade cohort data from 6th grade. And because we're only in the 2nd year of STAR testing for literacy, I don't have as much data from previous years because of that.
Okay, and then I just have one question on that because I noticed the difference like 43 to 48. I think it's great that they're doing better, but I'm just thinking as not a mathematician, this is tell you so. Is that significant? I mean, is that statistically significant or is it not?
That's a really good question, Terry, and I would have to dig into that a little bit more. What really caught my attention more was that our students are not necessarily performing that differently than last year at this time, which is not necessarily what I expected.
Which is pre-COVID is what you mean, right?
Yeah. That's at the very least they're maintaining. Maybe if it had been a normal year, maybe we would have been able to make even more growth than we have in previous years because we have new systems in place. But the fact that they're pretty much maintaining is encouraging, I think.
Yeah, I guess when I was asking about the statistical, I meant when you talked about the fall versus, yeah, okay, thank you.
I think in a couple of cases, it was statistically significant. I don't want to go back because I know you're working different numbers and things, but it's certainly moving in the right direction. And as a school board member, you and Dan, I really appreciate this. You know, we talk about a lot of other things, but it's always great to find out how our students are doing and what we're doing to make it even better. So thank you.
Joanne has her hand raised.
So it's going to be hard to follow Dawn on that one. You guys are doing a great job, and our students are good too. So, being a numbers, is this an area where we can set goals? As you know, board members, you know, we're always looking to be able to better our schools, I guess. Is this something that I know we're in a COVID era, so it's always difficult to, you know, ask for more, but if things were to go back to normal in the fall and we were to retest again, you know, just like you did fall and then again in the winter time, is it realistic that we would like to see these numbers go up by a couple percents, 1%, 5%? Like, I guess I know we're going through COVID, so it's hard and it's hard to go to last year, and it's a new system. But, you know, when we're looking at it, not just as grade 7, 8, and 9, but if you look at it as the class of 26 and the class of 25 and the class of 24, there is quite a difference between the class of 24 and the class of 25. it will be interesting when the second half, does all of their testing to see if those scores do come up. But I would hope that there isn't a trend, I guess, that when you go into the 9th grade, the scores go down, or the class of 24 seems to be testing lower than everyone else. Like, it would just be interesting and something that we can build on. I guess it's always nice to be able to build on something. So I appreciate the numbers. I'm not asking for, yes, next year we're going to increase by 2%, but I just think it's a good conversation piece. And something to think about, and something that as a board member, it's really nice to be presented with this information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we will assess again in the spring. So we will have final numbers for 7 and 8. Again, the grade 9 numbers will be a little wonky. But then now that we have this tool and that we have gotten used to using it and have systems in place and the resources to react, I think that's one of the biggest things is now that we have the data, we need and have the resources to respond to the data. Now that we have this tool, we can track it over time, and we can track both cohorts and how they perform over time, but also, compare 8th grade to 8th grade last year. Both of those things are really useful.
Yep. Like, is there something different in the testing for the high school STAR test? Do the questions change, or does the information, is it that much different from 8th grade to the 9th grade, where the questions are more difficult, and this is why they're having a hard time, and this is why the scores are dropping? I have one more question, kind of maybe back on Dan, but Jen, if you can answer it, that's great. My question has to do with registrations. My interest is dual enrollment classes, AP classes. I'm constantly thinking about our juniors and seniors. Are we able to have we been offering the same number of dual enrollment classes as we have in the past for our kids signing up for it? I am pro college. So whatever we can do to help them, and I know, I'm assuming we still offer vouchers for our juniors and seniors to take college classes. Like, all of that going well? Are our students taking advantage of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak to that. So I think our AP offerings are consistent from year to year, and we have high enrollment in those. This year we're offering 2 sections of AP statistics, and I can't remember a year where that's happened. And we had a very full section of AP calculus, which is so encouraging because 3 or 4 years ago we didn't offer AP Calc at all. And so we're very pleased with that growing number. Dual enrollment is a little bit trickier. I think something that we struggle with dual enrollment is that it's really contingent upon the instructor. The instructor has to be approved by CCV. They have to have specific credentials to get approved. It's not the course itself. And so when we've had some recent turnover where our dual instructor teachers or dual enrollment instructors have left for other opportunities, and we have not been able to necessarily replicate those because of the requirements that CCV has. So that's something that we are challenged with, and we definitely want to make sure that we increase those offerings because they're important. And we'll try to figure out how to eliminate some of those obstacles. But unfortunately, it is every year we end up having to try to figure out that piece.
Thank you.
Any other? Oh, Megan.
Just to follow up on that, for the dual enrollment pieces, what about the local colleges that offer the dual enrollment? Like, I know that St. Michael's College, you can use your vouchers there, you can use them at UVM. Why is it that we're limiting ourselves to CCV?
Oh, it's not, there are 2 different things. So there's dual enrollment that you can go and take courses at UVM or Northern Vermont University or St. Mike's and use your voucher to take a course there in person or virtually. What I was speaking to is what's called concurrent classes, where the credit is awarded from CCV, but our teachers are the instructors. So they actually take it as part of their regular schedule. So there are two different parts of dual enrollment.
Gotcha.
We're hoping to share with you in either March or April. I think it's April. We're going to have some of the SEL data from our panorama survey, but also career and college readiness data. So we can share dual enrollment numbers then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My internet is really slow tonight, so I can only see about 4 people. So if anybody doesn't push the little raised hand button, I can't tell if they raise their hand. Not seeing any, so I believe we're good to go on. Yep, okay. So next under administrative reports is the superintendent report newsletter.
Okay, so the first part of the newsletter really is talking about recovery, so it's pretty timely for the conversations we've been having. We are expecting any minute a formal recovery plan template from the Agency of Education that will focus on 3 things: academic outcomes, social emotional learning outcomes, and truancy in attendance. So we've touched on much of that today. We are already having conversations about what summer programming will look like. Jen spoke to you a little bit about our recovery planning for some seniors this year, that we want to do some work to ensure that those students have all the proficiencies they need to graduate on time. So we're looking to staff over vacation for those students. Somebody brought up the question in one of our conversations about retention. And we've been having that conversation as an administrative team, and we've been having that conversation across Vermont. Our Champlain Valley regional superintendents were just discussing this week, and there was a meeting just today about how we can work together to plan for those students who have, and luckily Dan was sharing some data that, we've got 91% of kids, 93% of kids, but those kids that aren't attending, or students that have maybe homeschooled and are coming back maybe not at grade level, or for a variety of reasons, we are going to have students that are going to come back with deficits. And we can't just retain large numbers of students. We know that the outcomes are not good for that. For long-term outcomes are not great for retention. So we have to come up with plans that can really intervene and accelerate student learning. And that's not something that we can just hire a couple of tutors and it'll all be fine. I mean, we really have to look pretty deeply at the way instruction is delivered and what kinds of opportunities are given to students, how interventions look. So there's a great deal of work to be done, and we are engaging in that work now. Everything we do, Joanne was asking a great question about our data and our tracking and the data that was shared today. All of that STAR 360 data that you've seen today, the data that's been collected and is being examined just this week by our teachers, will then have a root cause analysis, trends, concerns will be identified, and that ends up being part of our continuous improvement plan, which is then linked to our federal grant money, which is then linked to what our recovery plan looks like. So all of it just is very tightly connected. So we have from teachers to administrators to the superintendent level are examining this data, looking at trends and identifying high leverage interventions that can really support students. So I just wanted to make sure this is just the beginning of these conversations, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood we were starting on that work. Some of the ideas for just the summer programming are pretty exciting in that they're looking at partnering with other community partners and having the after school program and tutoring and summer school work together so that we can have students with their academic learning, but also we know that hands-on, experiential, being out with others will also help student outcomes too. So we really want it to be pretty rich for our students. But this is not summer and everything will be fine. The recovery plan is really looking at long-term. I think that you have all been hearing from me about our town meeting day preparation and our sharing of budget information. I want to thank board members that have helped record our budget videos that are showing aspects of the budget in each school. And those, again, can be found on our website. Laura has finished putting together all of our principals, our board chair, administrators, facility folks. Everyone has worked hard to put information in our annual report. It was shared with a community reviewer, and the feedback was very positive, and there were a couple of suggestions that are being implemented in that. So that was very positive. And we should be looking at an insert in the messenger in the near future. And finally, what I wanted to share is the work that has started with our Portrait of a Graduate team. We had our first meeting. Terry was a board member that's on that leadership team. And we are using Up for Learning as facilitative partners. It was a relationship building process. Half at least of those on the team are students. We have students from all of our schools, and this Up for Learning really believes, I mean, it's their mission to have student voice and student agency as main part of their mission. And they have a young woman who is a trained student facilitator, and she is working to train our MVU students to facilitate this whole process. Our expectation is that next week on Tuesday, the task force will be meeting, and the Up for Learning leaders will come and present to that group, because a lot of the work that the board goals folks have been talking about are being met and addressed through this process. It's a long-term process. The outcome at the end will really be a shared vision of what a graduate of our school system will have, what values we have as a community for our graduates. So that conversation will happen at the task force meeting next Tuesday. And then our hope is that as we meet, we're meeting monthly, later in the spring, hopefully we'll have the student participants, the student facilitators, present to the board about where they are in the work. So I thought it would be a really great opportunity for the students to lead that. I have legislative updates there. Chris and I submitted a letter regarding H63, I think it was, just this morning, which is a bill regarding healthcare negotiations. And we submitted information about our healthcare expenses as a school district to help inform the legislature. So that is what I have for an update.
Okay, I've got all kinds of hands raised. So first Terry, then Joanne, then Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. That Portrait of Graduate is wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to being able to share that with people. I have a question about the report. And if, like, for example, it starts off page 1. Should I talk to you individually about this? Because I do have a question or a suggestion. When's the appropriate time to talk about that?
Oh, you can email me and chat about it tomorrow at any time. I probably have some kind of weird typos in this.
No. It's just we got board goals. We got board goals is what's important, and I just don't think it should be board goals right there. I think it should be the school goals. As simple as that. You know what I mean? So I'll email you about it. No typos or any of that.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Terry. Joanne?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, but my hand is not up. Good.
Oh, your hand, the electronic hand is still up. That's what I thought.
I don't know. It's not in.
Oh, now it's
There, it's gone.
Gone? Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, guys.
Go ahead, Peter.
Mine's real quick. Just that annual report, I noticed that it has Dawn listed as the vice chair. So if you still have time to correct that.
I
will fix that.
I didn't know so.
And Dawn.
That would be a mistake. Keep that there. Julie, you talked about the letter. Did it go to all of our local legislators? I mean, who was it directed to?
I sent it to the committee and I sent it to our House of Representative local delegation. I did not send it to the senators.
Because we have 2 House members on that committee right here in Franklin County. So that's good. And just as it moves, if it moves along in the Senate, it'll have to go, I believe, at some point into maybe into finance, and Randy Brock is on that committee.
Mhm.
And, to get to the people who are on the committees many times that's where the changes will occur. Once it hits the floor, it's really tough. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear you're doing it. I've been in contact with various people. I don't know if we're going to make any progress, but that's a really key bill. Anybody that's concerned about school costs should be all over that bill.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Not hearing any. Thank you very much, Julie. And I believe we're ready to move on. So next up is new business. And first up for new business is Title I policy review. And under that, we have the E1 parental involvement.
Yes, and I listed both of our title policies that, if you recall, were just adopted June of 2019 as we became a new district. We had them in place for July 1. It's really just the title, the E1 parental involvement policy, that is required. I'm going to have Kosha walk us through it a little bit. We do not have to re-adopt any policies. I just want to make sure we're clear about that. But we've been told in a recent title audit that they want school districts to review the policy every year and show in the minutes that we have done so. Our policies are adopted directly from the Vermont School Board Association Model Policy Manual, and they are in compliance, but I just wanted to make sure that we follow what they want us to do and we make sure that we review it. So I'm going to hand it over to Kosha.
Hello, everyone. As Julie said, we are required by statute that we look at our Title I policy every year and update it if we find that student needs, family needs, school needs have changed. And as Julie said, we have modeled our policy on the Vermont School Boards Association template, and it's perfectly fine. When I looked at the policy and I looked through the checklist that we are supposed to use in order to do our annual review, there's a mention of a homeschool compact for parental involvement. We did have one many years ago. I just updated it and I put the link in the chat box if people want to take a look at it. It is basically outlining the expectations for from the school, what are expectations of parents, and what are expectations of students. So basically, it's asking you to look at that and kind of approve of it. Like I said, it's something that was adopted many years ago when we were Franklin Northwest, and we are just updating it to reflect today. So As Julie mentioned again, it's part of the Title I policy now that we have to every year look at it once and make sure it still complies with everything we wanted. And so was everyone able to access the document? I put the link into the chat box. And basically we have to do a parent engagement compact or an agreement for the district, and then each school has to do one that for their own school. So we've basically taken the same one that the administrators looked at, and I've created one for MVSD so that it's similar to what all the schools have. Terry? Oh, I see your hand raised.
Mine's still raised?
Yeah.
Oops. I am so sorry. I didn't lower it. I'm sorry.
So what the other question is, Kosha, that I have is, where will the school-specific parent compacts be hosted? So where can family members, community members, board members find it?
Once each school has one, and they, what we're going to do is we have a Title I parent meeting coming up in 3 of our schools. Franklin already had theirs on November 13th. MVU is having their Title I parent meeting on March 3rd. Swanton is having theirs on March 11th. And Highgate is having their Title I parent meeting on April 15th. So during these meetings, parents will be shown the compact, and we'll be seeking input from parents in terms of if they feel anything's missing, anything needs to be changed. Once the parents' input has been received and it's finalized, it will be shared with parents through whatever means the administrators use. Like it could be a newsletter, it'll be posted on their website, but it will be communicated to all parents using whatever regular formats principals normally use right now. So we are trying to really seek more parental input. This year we are hoping that because the Title I events are going to be virtual, we'll have more parents able to participate. In last year, we had 100 families come to the Highgate one. So there was a Title I parent event. We go through what are the rights of a parent as being in a Title I school. We go through what is Title I, how do we provide Title I services to kids, all those things. And we had about 200 families in Swanton. MVU also had a really good turnout. It was mainly geared to 9th graders. And Franklin, being a targeted Title I school, all the parents of the students who are in Title I get to meet with the interventionists, and they go through all the Title I sort of interventions they provide, what are the rights, and what are the different programs, and get parental input. So let's see what happens. This year we are doing something unique. We are going to have the Title I annual meeting where we'll be seeking input from parents. And then in Highgate and Swanton, it's going to be followed by an engineering challenge, which the Echo Center is going to be running for families. So we are excited about this opportunity, and we are hoping that many, many parents will be able to participate. There'll be kits going out to the kids. So we'll have a sign up for parents, and parents can say, okay, I have 3 kids, they want to participate in this challenge. And we'll be sending the kids home prior to the event. The Echo Center person will then lead them through what the challenge is. And then each family, each kid could do it on their own, or a family could do it. And then there'll be breakout sessions where teachers will be working with smaller groups of kids, and the kids will be able to share what tool they built to meet that engineering challenge. So we are excited about these opportunities. MVU's Title I meeting is going to be great. Jen will run the first part, which will be seeking parental input into the Title I program and informing parents about how we use Title I intervention at MVU. It's going to be followed by Think Kids doing a presentation on collaborative problem solving, which is an approach that MVU has been using for several years. So we are excited to be able to share all that information with parents.
Yeah, thank you, Kosha. I know that the hard part is the feds require us to explain Title I to parents in what is a fairly dry piece of information. And yet what we really want to do is have families come in with some engaging activity that really gets families in the door, that we can get input, that we can train families on whatever programs we're using, whatever interventions are happening. We just try to make it exciting and interesting and worth everyone's time because it's so important to have families engage with schools. And it's not always easy. So I have just been so impressed by how each of our school administrators really look at this requirement and try and make it really engaging, informative, and helpful for students and families, as well as meet the criteria for title. Chris, I think what we're looking for in terms of this, if the board so chooses, would be to have a motion accepting the policy, that, the fact that the board discussed the family involvement policy, finds that it still meets federal requirements, discussed the parental compact process, and then, make a motion that they continue to accept it. Some version of that is what we'd be looking for, because I think that the title folks will want, I know they will want to see a motion in minutes.
Okay. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the Title I policy as reviewed with the parental compact, I believe you called it, as something that would be continued to be adjusted. Devin's the first, Terry's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the Title I policy as reviewed? Hang on, I'm writing something down. Go ahead and raise your hand. Got it as 7-0 because I don't see Megan anymore.
Her husband put out a go. Yeah, she just said that.
That's not good. Okay, so the motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. The Title I comparability, we don't need reviewed. I did list that there so people can take a look at it. It also meets the criteria, but apparently we don't need a motion specific to that one.
Okay. So I believe we're ready to move on to the next item under new business, which is budget communication plans, which a lot of the information can be found on mvsdschools.org. And there's a lot of videos getting put out now pertaining to each school.
Yeah, I think I gave that update mostly in our superintendent update. I am very appreciative again of all of the work that the principals and administrators have put into creating these presentations. It was a lot of work to put together the Google slideshow and then make the recording and get just the right amount of information. Laura has done a tremendous job working on new information as it comes into the state, the yield changing, equalized pupil changes, to make sure that our community has the most accurate information possible. And again, thanks to the board members. Chris, I feel so badly for the fact that I basically said, take off your hat and sit down and record this video now. But I appreciate the spirit of everyone just pitching in to do that. So we are going to be putting, I think the Franklin one is out, and we recorded Highgate today. Thank you, Jen. And Yeshua and Chris and Laura and I did that today. And so that will go out soon, and MVU's going to be recording Friday afternoon. And then we'll be recording Swanton's.
Thank you. Any questions for the information for the budget? Not seeing any. Next up, we can move on to old business. And first under old business is check warrants. Eve usually reads them, so I'm not sure who else from the committee or if Laura wants to read them. He's not here, so.
I'm happy to read the amounts. The check warrants are for the month of January 2021. Accounts payable is $797,777.35. Payroll checks is $32,518.98. Payroll other disbursements, which includes direct deposit, federal and state taxes, is $1,602,621.08. And payroll deductions, which is health, dental, retirement dues, etc., is $545,192.81, for a total of $2,978,110.22.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept check warrants as read. Devin's the first. Second, Terry. Any discussion? Seeing not. Oh, Devin.
Laura, just a check in, I guess, after this set of warrants, are we still tracking to that, relatively close to that carryover number we had looked at in the budget?
Yes, and I'll bring an updated financial report. I had hoped to bring one tonight, but just focusing on budget stuff, but I'll bring one next month. But yes, we are.
Thanks.
Don. Can't hear you, Don.
You're probably going to do this, but the next time, just give us a little update on any more money we might be getting through stimulus funds. I know there's a lot of discussions going on, but a lot of stuff hanging out there.
There is a lot of stuff. Funds are starting to flow in, which is nice. There was a lot of promises and applications and process, but no money had actually hit the bank yet, and that's starting to happen. In your COVID report that I included in the drive, you will notice if you look at the headers, we are breaking things out by the different funding sources now. So you'll see things like ESSER, CRF, and we're starting to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to vote? Here's we are. All those in favor of accepting check warrants as read, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next up, under old business, is COVID-19 financials information.
I don't really have much to say unless someone has pointed questions. Like I said, we continue to identify the funding sources now that we know what the funding sources will be. The ESSER application for phase 1 of that stimulus package is due on March 20th. So the admin team, Kosha, Wendy, myself, Tanya, and Marnie are all working on completing that application and allocating the expenses so far. We have about $740,000 available to us in that package.
Thank you. So next up we're on to other business. First on it is a letters of resignation.
I am muted. We have one letter of resignation that is in your drive for your review, and that is from Dina Sainamore. Dina has decided that she will be retiring at the end of the school year. She has told her teachers, she spoke to me about it a few weeks ago and had some decision making to make. I thought her letter to her teachers that she shared with the board was very heartfelt. We obviously have plans in place to move forward and post the position and have a process for a principal search, but we are going to miss Dina. She's given her entire career to Swanton and the Missisquoi Valley area, and she's going to be missed tremendously.
Absolutely. Terry.
So that's official now. We can tell people. That is so sad, but so good for her. But she really has been wonderful. She will be missed. Hard shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
So I will communicate with the board at a future time about our process and probably look for a board member to be a part of that process.
Absolutely.
It'll look a little different because it'll have to be virtual.
Right. Okay. So next under other business is waiver request. There's a possible finding for executive session on this one because of legal counsel advice from legal counsel. I don't believe we want to do any more without going into executive, right?
No, we've just had a request to waive all signatures from any petitions coming before this municipality during the COVID pandemic. And that request has a lot of implications, and we have legal advice to review from our school attorneys regarding the board's response.
Thank you. Don? Don, you're muted.
I know we all receive the information from Julie and Laura, but I'm going to tell you that anytime that you see any of our legislators or feel a need to leave a message for them, the yield that just came out of House Ways and Means, really critical. I know that that's a powerful committee. It appears they've done good work, but that's going to make a significant difference in what we're asking the taxpayers for if they can stick with that yield through the process in the House and then in the Senate. So I know sometimes we get into a lot of technical jargon and stuff, but the yield is critical. If you see somebody in the post office or you see somebody in the store, don't hesitate to tell them, thank you. Let's keep it at that level in House Ways and Means. It's a big one.
Yeah, and we're pretty excited. I spoke with Kate Webb, who is the chair of House Education, as well as Brian, who's Senate Education. But Kate is in receipt of that bill. It's on the wall, as they say. She expects and hopes that will be stable. Doesn't mean that it won't change a little bit, but they expect that to be stable, and that's a really good number for us and for our taxpayers.
Very good. So next up under other business is task force updates, and first up is board goals.
Oh, my mute's off. Sorry. I was just going to say that Julie mentioned it when we were talking about Portrait of Graduate. Joanne mentioned it when we were talking about performance and achievement measurements, that we are going to meet this Tuesday. We had planned on it. We might be having a special board meeting instead. I'm not sure. But so we have plans. Devin has some ideas about that we're going to talk about as well. So we're going to meet Tuesday, if all goes well, and discuss some things. So we're moving ahead. Thank you.
Very good. And then next up after that is the Facilities Task Force. We haven't met in a little while, but January, I think it was 18th, EEI came to Highgate and MVU and walked around the schools with both building directors and Julie and Laura and the principals. Jay and Dan joined in, and Yeshua joined in. I also attended both of the meetings and we walked around. They got a good first look at a kind of a 10,000 feet overview of the buildings and had set up a lot of plans to meet and do a lot deeper dive and looking at those two buildings. There's also plans to look at Franklin and Swanton as well and start putting together some recommendations to bring to first the board, the Facilities Task Force, then ultimately onto the full board.
They've been to Franklin and Swanton, Chris, now.
They have.
Yep.
So there will be probably quite a bit of moving parts for that in the next couple months, I would say. A lot of meetings we'll have to, or a lot of information we'll have to go over with that. That's about all we have for, at least for myself, for an update from facilities. I don't know if Peter or Don want to add anything, but.
The roof get done?
The quarter that we're planning on doing is done, yes.
Good.
Okay, so that's it for updates. The next up is future meeting dates, which I guess we have a little discussion on that one. Our next scheduled meeting is February 16th at 6:30, as always, virtually. I guess it would be the board's pleasure whether we want to schedule a meeting for next Tuesday per Don's request. Does everyone else agree? Devin.
I guess I'd just like to know from Julie if that time frame is reasonable. I know to Don's point, time's of the essence. But is that a reasonable time frame where we might have a recommendation from your team?
I think that we will. If it's not solid, we'll let you know that it's not solid, but we can at least give you an update. I think Dina had plan A and plan B, so I think we'll likely be fine to meet with you next Tuesday. Hopefully we'll be able to have the committee meeting and the special board meeting as well. So we'll talk about timing.
Peter, I saw your hand up.
No, Devin basically asked the question that I had.
Anyone else have an opinion, or would we like to schedule a meeting for Tuesday?
I'll make a motion to, or I don't know if I make a motion, but I would support that.
Okay. Would 6:30 work?
Yes.
There was a question too in the chat. Lauren had a question.
Oh, Lauren, that will be posted. It's always posted on the school website, but we'll make sure we'll make sure that the invitation is shared so that you can see it. Okay.
Very good. So at this time we have a meeting. Today's the 2nd, so the 9th. We have a meeting February 9th at 6:30 virtually. It'd be a fairly short meeting, at least for the full board. And then our regularly scheduled meeting February 16th at 6:30, which is also virtual. So at this time, unless somebody else has something to add, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss legal advice. First, Terry's a second. Open for discussion. I guess at this point we'd invite in Julie, right? And I don't think we need anyone else, right? Okay. Discussion. Go ahead, Don.
No, I was going to second it, but they're quicker than I am, so it's all right.
I just want to add that we wouldn't have had this meeting if we weren't virtual, because we would have been canceled with snow day, right? We couldn't have gotten there. So this is one plus for virtual.
Right. Good night, everyone. So at this time, are we ready to go into executive? Go ahead and vote. Raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0.